Hello, everyone. This is David Ellis, and I'm back with my co host, Nicole DeCroce. And
Hi,
today we are
everyone.
going to be talking about the therapist and the client dynamic. And this is a show for all of you therapists, healers, spiritual counselors, traditional counselors, psychotherapists out there. Before we start, I'll let Nicole introduce herself. Nicole, introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nicole DeCroce. I'm an intuitive strategist and a spiritual counselor. And I'm excited that you're joining us here today because we're going to take a dive into the delicate relationship between client and therapist. And there's a lot to unpack. And we're hoping perhaps we can provide information that'll help you with navigating that journey. So,
Yep, and also we have our daily giveaway, which is very exciting because every show we try to help people with businesses and people who are in the therapy game or the wellness industry. So today's giveaway you might want because we even included dummy contracts of no harm contracts inside there. So if you're around, we have it on a QR code. You guys can scan the QR code and yay, you will have resources for your business. Okay, we have nurturing your spirit workbooks for you spiritual counselors out there that you can use with your clients. You are absolutely free to steal our stuff and use it with your clients. It does not make a difference. For those of you who are watching in the chat, we're pulling in the chats from different areas. We have new technology for that, so you guys can actually ask questions while the show is going on. This is a live show. And so in studio with us, we have Mary Kilgoyne. Okay. She's a psychotherapist, and she's going to join us with talking about this really important topic. And I say it's an important topic because a lot of therapists, a lot of spiritual counselors, a lot of people who are in the whole therapy game, they struggle a lot when it comes to clients. A lot of people have actually quit counseling, quit therapy, quit their jobs, and gone into something else because clients can be challenging. And so today we're going to make sure that everyone who is here has a set of tools that they can use when you face difficult clients. So without further ado, I will bring Mary on screen. Mary, hello, how are
Hello,
you?
hi,
hello everyone. How are you?
Matthew.
Okay, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're operating, and what it is that you do?
Yes, I'm a counselor psychotherapist and I'm actually working as a counselor for the past 25 years. I began off working way back during the time of the church crisis here in Ireland, actually. I live in Ireland when the sexual abuse of children broke out, and we had an awful lot of people coming into the centre where I worked with those issues at the time. So I suppose I could say I was thrown in at the deep end. Anyway, I went on to graduate from that, and I became qualified as a psychotherapist, and I started working in the counselling centre. At
Mhm.
that time, I also worked in special needs, so I was kind of bridging two jobs. But now, at
Mhm.
the moment, I'm working solely as a counsellor psychotherapist, and I do work on Zoom, and I do work at my own room, where I have a room set up here in my hometown of Castlebar, County Mayo.
Yeah, you're in Ireland.
I am, yes.
I want to shout out to Andrew and Dale and Maddie and Laura who are journeying across England at the moment. I see you guys with the updates. I'll be posting the updates regularly for you guys. Other than that, let's get into this topic. Okay, so I have been many different kinds of therapists in my time, and I could tell you it doesn't matter what kind of client walks in the door, the basics are still the same. So I'm going to talk from the client side. How do you find a good therapist? That's the first thing that we want to cover. All right. So I'm going to say a few things of my thoughts. I'm going to pass it to you, Nicole. So basically, when you're finding a good therapist, a lot of people go online or they go to LinkedIn or one of those professional sites and they look for paper. Okay, they look for paper, they look for accreditations, what school you went to, and so on. what associations you're attached with. Okay, paper is only half the story, because a good therapist will be theoretically very organized and will have compassion as a default setting. Okay, compassion as a default setting. So I think that when people are looking for therapists, and I mean, depending on where you are, the world will always need therapists, but some areas are saturated. If you live in Los Angeles, as an example, everyone's a therapist down there, right? But if you live where I live, as an example, there are very few therapists, right? They're usually concentrated in major towns and so on. But if you lived in a place that's spaced out, there's not therapists everywhere you go. I see someone who lives around where I live in the chat. Shout out to Crystal. Crystal is actually one of the better therapists I've ever met in my life. Crystal, big shout out to you. Right. And so here's the other aspect of the therapy game when it is that you're looking for a therapist. Go to the website and read the website. I would say that if you are looking for a therapist, you might want to avoid therapists with particular slants. I never thought that would actually be a thing, Mary. Like there are therapists that have a particular slant to them. Okay? And I say that
Yes.
like there's a Christian psychologist as an example.
Mm, mm,
So you know,
right.
if you go to that therapist or that psychologist, you're going to get the perspective of Christianity coming at you.
Mm,
But what if you're Muslim? What if you're Hindu?
mm,
And then there are psychologists or psychotherapists who are, um, let's say, um, spiritual psychotherapists, and even that is a slant in and of itself.
mm,
It's a broader
mm,
slant, but it's still a slant. So I suppose if you're a client, you get enmeshed in a number of things. There's Freudian psychotherapists. Okay, they will look at you from a particular perspective, and then there's CBT and there's REBT and all those kinds of cool sounding therapy type things. And we want to break this down. So, Nicole, I don't know. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's interesting from a client's perspective. Finding the right therapist is really a journey. You have to, like you said, do your research, read their website, but you almost have to interview them because it's such a delicate relationship, and it really has to mesh. It has to make sense. So in a crisis situation, that could be an issue because you don't have time to interview and but it's really also important that you can utilize your friends
Hmm.
to give you referrals as
mm,
well. But then there's a line where you might not want to tell your friends or family that you're going to therapy. So there's a confidentiality pathway there. But yeah, you really have to do your research and find a real good fit because the wrong therapist will lead you down the wrong path and then exacerbate the issues. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
Mary, what are your thoughts on that aspect?
Yes, I agree with everything that Nikki has said. I think that the relationship between therapist and client is really central to the process of counseling. And really, maybe your friends might have found a therapist really to be very good for them, but there may not be a match there for you. And I think that it's really important to go for the first interview. In my training, we always were told just do one interview first with each client and see if you were a match as well.
Hmm.
And both people to be honest with each other. And I think that, the therapist, you need to feel that you are respected, that you're in a place that is caring, and that there's a genuine desire to understand your experience as a client, as a person, as a human being. And I do think that is central to good therapy, no matter what the skills are that people have learned. I think just that basic understanding and being able to listen and reach out and hear how the other person is experiencing the world is what makes the difference.
Yep. Really, I think that a lot of the problems that therapists have with their clients, the misalignments that they have,
Mm,
stem from a lot of communication issues. Okay, so I'm teaching a class on Sundays, and communication is key when you're talking to clients. Uh, Even if you are misaligned and so on, you even communicating that misalignment requires you to, well, communicate, right?
mm,
And
mm,
so fundamental to the whole therapy dynamic is the communication process between a therapist and the client. So yes, the alignment is one thing. In terms of communication, how would you guys, how do you guys, what is your strategy for communicating with clients, your personal strategies? Because honestly, in my practice and so on, I try to figure out how this client is speaking, how he is talking, and I try to match what it is that I'm saying to what the client is able to process. There are a lot of therapists who talk over their clients' heads. There are a lot of
mm,
therapists that clearly have misalignment issues with regard to talking to people, generally speaking, right? Either they're too um, inflexible in the way that they communicate or whatever the case may be. And that leads to the client not feeling like they're getting a lot of benefit from sessions with that person. So I don't know what your strategies are, but mine was always to try to match what the client's communication style is.
mm.
I
Yes, I would
agree with
find
that.
that too.
Mhm.
Sorry, Nikki.
Yeah, no, no, it's okay. But from the onset, you really have to listen and hear what the client is telling you from without any um, without any opinions, and you really have to listen, especially that first 30 minutes, and listen and hear what they're saying, so you can navigate and figure out if you are going to be a match or you can handle. Um, and the good thing about being a therapist is that you have a long array, a list of other referrals. You can refer them to someone else. But listening, like other than communication, listening and really hearing to what they're
Mm.
saying is the first step. Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that too. I find that, especially at the beginning of therapy, I think that it's really important for the therapist to listen. We used to have a term called active listening, where we really
Yes.
followed the body language as well as what they were saying. And it is very important that that aspect is covered, because it does give the person who is coming in, because they're absolutely dying to tell you what it is they're there for. Sometimes I find they can hardly wait for you to fill out a form. They're just dying to get started. So they need to be heard. So I think that's an important aspect initially.
So we're gonna give the therapist a little bit of a cueing system. In terms of body language, you guys wanna talk about some of the body language? I can act it out. I can absolutely act it out. I'm good at this. I'm good at this. Right?
We,
Client
we
comes into
know.
you need to be able to read this stuff, right? Client comes into your office and they're like,
Yeah, their arms are folded. Hmm.
right?
Mm,
They may not be open to the process, and this could signify one of two things. I am not feeling safe, but I am too manly to say I am not feeling safe, so I'm just going to be like this. Okay?
mm,
So this closed down sort of um appearance, when you see it, you know that you have a barrier to communicate with that client that you need to deal with immediately. Don't just launch into like just talking about, oh, your feelings and so on when somebody's sitting right here like this. Okay?
mm,
Another popular therapy body position is something that looks like this, right? I am hearing what you are saying. I really want to hear what you're saying, but I don't want to appear like I'm desperate. Okay?
mm, mm,
I
mm.
don't want to appear like
Yeah,
I'm desperate.
yeah.
These are the kinds of things that give stuff away. Somebody's sitting and they're listening attentively to you like this, and you have to be able to discern these body um,
Mm,
cues, because if you
mm,
don't, and they go over your head, and you just waxing poetic about all the wonderful therapies and all the cosmic bliss that you can experience, right? If you just open up your heart and let the light shine in, that is not going to work for different people. You need to break down certain barriers when people come into you. What are the strategies that you guys have for breaking down barriers with your clients?
Mm.
Well, I think in my case, David, that I think it's a given actually that people are a bit anxious when they're coming into therapy,
Hmm.
and I don't think it's an easy thing to do. I think
Hmm.
it does take quite a bit of courage to go in and sit in front of a stranger and like, where do you start and how do you open up? And they feel really vulnerable and maybe sometimes carrying a lot of shame about something. So it's
Hmm.
not easy. I can remember when I had to go to therapy when I was training, and we had to do mandatory 3 years of therapy. And at the beginning, I thought, what do I have to do that for? Sure, I don't need to do this, but what am I going to talk about? What will I talk about? But actually, and it is a fear that a lot of people have. What will I talk about in therapy? Mind you, I never stopped for 3 years, but I think that I do allow for that always, that people are not finding the space easy, even if it's not obvious in their body language, as it probably never was in mine. But at the same time, I think that it's just a case of making them at ease, taking it slowly, listening to what they have to say, giving a bit of reflection, a little bit of feedback, maybe as to what they've said, and just to take it slowly. I think it's important that again it goes back to the listening.
Correct. Nikki, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, well, different people react, of course, differently. So sometimes it might be the folded arms. It could be their eyes. A lot of times they don't make eye contact. They're avoidant. So how I navigate that is maybe chit chatting a little bit, letting them speak, offering them something to drink, letting them get comfortable in the space, and letting them know that they can share and there is no judgment. So I think when somebody comes in and they want to talk but they're so stiff, that's the way that I ease them into it, because then
Yep.
10 minutes later I can't get them to stop talking. So
Mm.
yeah, it
Yes,
works
that
that way for me.
yes, that container of safety is very important. And a lot
Mm.
of people just skip over it in therapy. So I'm just talking to you guys. If you guys are massage therapists, whether y'all are reflexologists, y'all may not have done the sensitivity training in that way because y'all had to concentrate on the technical aspects. But we're just giving you the excuse because it can absolutely assist your practice and prevent client attrition when it is that you just implement this container of safety. When people come into your practice, you need to let them know that they can speak to you in safety without judgment, and you are there to help. I'll repeat that. You can speak to me in safety without me judging you, and I am here to help you. That's what my purpose is. Okay? And there's many ways to express it. Things that I wouldn't suggest is, yeah, well, you're paying me, so I'm not going to judge you. No, don't say that. Don't say that. Okay? Right? Because I have to be very specific when I'm on air. Don't say those things. I am here. It is my purpose to help you. That is my vocation. This is why I am here. That is why I'm in front of you. Okay? um Doing that thing, it seems like a very small thing to do, but the impact is
Mm.
major for the client when they hear that, when they actually hear that. And you need to articulate that to your client. um Other things that I could see with regard to the therapy game is what Mary alluded to, which is the active listening. Let's talk about active listening. You're a therapist. Let's talk about active listening because everybody thinks that they listen. You know that. What
Yeah,
is it?
yeah, yeah.
What is the difference between hearing somebody and listening to them? Your
Well,
thoughts?
I think an active listening, David, you actually are listening with your eyes as well as your ears.
Yes.
So you're not missing anything. You're seeing, and I mean, I'm so long doing it now, I don't have to think of that. I don't have to think I need to active listen. It just automatically happens. It happens from experience. You just do it.
And
Yeah.
the hearing part is that you're picking out the words that they're what they're really saying, because
Mhm.
sometimes they're not sure how to express it. And
Mhm.
I find that confidentiality also calms them down when you speak
Yes.
to them, other than the safe space that this is, I'm not going to repeat your business. You can speak in
Yes.
confidence, and that kind
Yes.
of lowers their energy as well.
Yes, it does. And the anxiety that
Yeah.
maybe, yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
So usually
Mm.
when clients were speaking to me in practice, um, there are two ways that I let them know that I'm listening to them. Okay. Now, a lot of people on the streets, when they want to do active listening by saying, uh huh, yes, yep, right? For somebody on the street, it absolutely lets them know that, okay, at least he's hearing me. But the active listening that we're talking about may look like in a therapy setting, like, okay, let me see if I understand what it is that you just said.
Mhm.
A, B, C has happened. I repeated to the individual
Yeah.
the facts that the individual has given to me. Okay. And in that dynamic, the individual say, yes, that's exactly what happened, right?
Mhm.
Because you are assuming, usually when you are hearing somebody talking to you, right, that you've understood what they've said. But did you really?
Yeah.
So you might want to confirm with the individual as to, is this what happened? Yes, this is what happened. Okay. And they're going to confirm with you, and they know that you are engaged with them. Okay. So
Mm.
I just want to say this because these things seem very slight, but they can make a big difference to your practice. Mary's been doing this for over 20 years, right? I've been doing it for too long. I'm not dating myself, but I've been over 20 years myself, right? I've been doing this for too long. Um, and you know the mistakes that you make when you begin, right? You first start, like
Mm.
the organizational mistakes as a therapist and so on
Yes.
that you make.
Mhm.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
But Nikki, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So, all
Mhm.
right, you make these kinds of organizational mistakes. So, letting your client know that you are attentive will make a big difference, because if there's one thing that your client will remember is that that man or that woman listened to me.
Yes.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I
So,
think your tone, your tonality, really
Mhm.
calms them as well, and they'll remember that. Oh, she was really patient. She was really kind with me. So clients absolutely remember that. Mhm.
They do. And I think what David was saying about, reflecting back the experience and saying, have I got this right? So this is what happened, and just clarifying it. I think that makes the client feel very held. And, really they feel that you're really paying attention to them, because they're not probably used to that kind of attention, that somebody tracks what they're saying to that extent.
Yes, because you're validating it for them
Yes.
by
Yes.
listening and repeating. Hmm.
Yes. Yes.
there's another aspect of this, and I'm going to take this from more the traditional aspect, the to a more spiritual aspect. There are counselors and there are counselors. There are people who are um spiritual counselors. There are people who are um therapists in terms of massage therapy. When it is that you are dealing with clients, there's an energetic exchange that is happening between you and that client.
Hmm.
And so when it is that you're talking to the client and so on, the subtle, not said things, that the air between you and the client, what it is charged with is one thing. A lot of people are under the mistaken impression that co regulation happens when I physically contact you. I
Mm.
choose to say no. I think
No.
co regulation happens when you are in proximity of an individual.
Mm.
Okay.
Yes.
So somebody walks into your office and so on. If you are not emanating compassion, I am here to help, check yourself and reschedule. Okay?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Do not emanate, you are client number 5, I am getting tired.
No.
You guys get where I'm coming from. And so how did,
Yes.
how did you guys get around keeping your energy levels and the transmission to your clients up during this time?
I think for me, it came down to scheduling. I really had to control my schedule. I couldn't let my clients run me. I had to run them, the schedule. And I really think it's important to take a break in between clients, maybe get some food, take a walk, just kind of reset your energy. That's always helped me because then I have a fresh outlook on the next client.
Yep.
Yeah. And it
Yeah,
helps burnout. Yeah.
I would be the same. I would move out of the room. I think it is important to move because it kind of shakes off the energy of the session and to walk out in the fresh air, even if you only had time to turn around and go back in, but just to
Hmm.
make sure you got a break. And not to have it is scheduling too, Nikki, not to have too many in a day because you do get it's quite draining work. I know it mightn't look like that to people, but it actually is because when you're
Yes.
paying full attention you are actually giving a lot of energy. So it takes its toll. It is quite draining at the
I have
end
a,
of the day,
yeah, I got a joke for you, all a personal experience.
right?
When I first graduated from the whole learning experience in school, right? I wanted to get into therapy and banish all misery from the land. I was so idealistic and so on, right? And I started counseling in a small 166 square mile island, all right, in the Caribbean Sea. Right. You don't get to specialize and you don't get to pick and choose who your clients are. And so the first place I learned to counsel was opposite the red light district. Okay. I didn't get to choose my hours. Mary, that was like social work. I kid you
I
not.
know, I
Right.
know.
And
Yes.
so I was pulling these kinds of hours, 8 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night, right? Back to back. And I knew because, they trained you to keep your energy up and self care and all that stuff, and all that went out the window, which is the next
Mhm.
topic we're going to be dealing with, the self care aspect as a therapist. And all of that stuff went out the window, right? And so I would keep that energy up. I would be like, yes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm banishing misery from the land. I martyr myself upon the pyre of compassion. Okay, let me tell you what happened to me. Okay, every night I would nose dive into the bed. I actually positioned a little futon kind of cushion thing by the door so that when I walked in, I would just fall forward on my face.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
we want to say this to you guys in terms of I don't care what therapy, if you're in the wellness industry or if you're in any kind of industry where you're dealing with people's health, mental, physical, spiritual, whatever the case may be, self care is important. And you learn that the hard way. Okay?
Mm.
Tell me, what are your self care practices, guys?
Mary?
I find walking actually is great because again there's movement in it, there's fresh air, and sometimes eating. I actually find eating is there's something about that that's it's giving me sustenance after maybe a difficult session. I like to have a cup of tea and maybe a snack of something. I meditate. And I suppose the fact that I watch my schedule is in a way self care as well.
Mhm. And knowing, I think it's important that I found within myself is knowing myself, knowing when I feel like I'm getting overwhelmed or wow, I need a break, because I don't want to shortchange my clients. I don't want to not be 100% there. So I think over the years, since I've been practicing for 33 years, it's just I know myself. So I look at my schedule and I'm like, no, that's too much. Let me move
Mm.
some things around. And there's always emergency. I leave room for emergency appointments because that always happens every week. I
Mm.
had something this morning. I had something last night. Everything always pops up. So I do leave a little wiggle room for that. But
Mhm.
like you, Mary, getting outside, fresh air,
Mm.
grounding, connecting with Mother Earth, all those things are
Mm.
very important. Mhm.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, I lie inert. I meditate, yes, and I lie inert and I do not move. Okay,
Mm.
I stay there
Mm.
and I let myself reconfigure. A lot of
Mm.
the things that people say in terms of the self care, people have made self care a stressful thing. You know that, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
Like
that
all
would be
these
good.
self-care regimes, we're gonna. I have seen some things online, right? Because the internet is always the best place for information about stuff like, I don't know, spirituality. No, not really. So I've seen people with elaborate self care routines. They're going to get their little green smoothie, but they got to go to the to get it organic, right? Right? So they get a little organic, but you gotta blend that really fast because you gotta get to your massage therapist for a little spa treatment. And you gotta get the little bath and stuff like that. Listen, self care is as important as anything else. And if your self care routine is causing you stress, you might want to abandon it or get a
Exactly.
self-care or get a self-care
Mm.
practice for your self-care routine because like really. Okay,
Mhm. Yeah.
so we want to get into the therapy game now. You got the client. Okay, you got probably quite a few clients, right? Because you listened to the first part of the show and you implemented it, so now you have a few clients. There are other problems with the client therapist dynamic that we have to talk about. First thing is the transference thing.
Hmm.
There is a natural, I do not want to say power dynamic because there are power dynamics in counseling as well. But there's an authority dynamic set up between you and the client. The client is coming to you for assistance. And so your position when you hold that client, hold on one sec. Oh, sorry about that, guys. Your position
No
when you
worries.
hold your position when you hold that client is going to be very, very important. And so what that looks like is you're going to have to create ways of letting the client know that you're not judging them or you're not looking at them from a hierarchical position. What are your strategies for doing that?
Hmm. You Mary first. Mm.
I suppose, David, it's an interesting topic, transference and counter-transference, because counter-transference is active as well in the therapeutic relationship. You're going to have feelings as well that are coming up as a result of the relationship with the client. Sometimes I think it's a good thing, depending on where the therapy is at, to bring it into the therapy. But if we're talking about the initial 1 or 2 sessions, and you notice something, you could name it in an indirect kind of way, because I think at that stage the whole relationship is still a bit young to maybe confront
Correct.
certain things. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think it's really important when you're meeting with the clients to make sure that that you don't take on too much. You don't take on that transference. And then if you have something going on with you that day, maybe reschedule. If you're not 100% or 99%, you don't want to transfer that onto your client as
Mm.
well, that energy. Also, I'm very particular about how I say things to my client and when I say things
Yes.
because they hold on to every single word and I can't fix them. I can help them on their journey,
Yeah.
but I'm not here to fix them. And a lot of people think, oh, I can just fix their problems. No, no, we're on a journey together. I will help you, but I can't do all that for you. Yeah. So it can get a little
Yeah.
tricky sometimes.
Yeah, I am going to go these kinds of places. When you're dealing with a client of the opposite sex and you are the assistant
Mm.
in the client of the opposite sex and they develop feelings for you,
Mhm.
oh my, that's going to be interesting. That's a tricky thing because they see you as well, I hate to have to say it this way, you're my messiah, right? But they, because depending on what our client is going through, they're going to have feelings which are uh confusing for them.
Mm.
And a lot of people associate anybody helping them in one of two modes. A lot of people only have two modes for people assisting them. Either you're my daddy or mommy, or you are my husband, boyfriend, or wife, girlfriend.
Mm.
And when people have those kinds of things, like it becomes a very dangerous world for the therapist. It does. It
Mm.
becomes a very dangerous world. Because if you see that going on, you need to probably deal with it sooner rather than later. Because if you try to ignore it, trust me, it's not going to go away, right? What is this saying that we used to have? Silence is compliance.
Mm, mm,
Right?
Right.
So, what are your strategies when you're dealing with these kinds of tricky situations? You know, I would go there. You guys just know I would go there.
But for me, I refer them out quite quickly, because yeah, I don't want to add any more complication to what they're going through. But I just tell them it's not a good match, and I give them referrals. I don't leave them empty-handed. So that's how I
mm,
handle it. Yeah, because it can get tricky.
Oh, really?
mm.
So, like, how does that conversation go? Hi, I just thought you'd like to know that this is not a good match, right?
Yeah, I'm really blunt that way. Yeah, I have. Well, you do it gingerly, but yeah.
Mm,
Tell me, Mary, what are your advice for the therapist? Because there are a bunch of young ladies out here who are trying to become therapists. Okay,
mhm,
now you went to school, you learned your trade or whatever it is that you're learning. You learn the skill sets, and you are out there in the world, and you're trying to banish misery from the land, etc., etc. Okay, probably you're not like me. Okay, you're not as corny as I am, right? But you're trying to earn a living for yourself, and then this dynamic creeps in, especially if you're doing contact therapy such as massage therapy. For those of
mm,
for those of you that like any kind of contact, whether it be structural reintegration, massage therapy, even Reiki.
mm. Yeah, I would find actually, David, that it really does creep into most therapy, really. And when I say that, I don't, not necessarily the sexual aspect. I wouldn't have found that, in my experience, I haven't experienced much of that. But I would have experienced the transference of the parent or the person in authority, the person who kind of is going to fix me, or the expectation that therapy is here to just sort me out. You know, that is a huge transference in therapy, because once that comes into therapy, everything is about the therapist. It's no longer about the client. So you do have to hand that back, and you have to make it very clear that the work is the client's work. They bring the material. You will facilitate them with the material. They actually are there to heal themselves in the end. It's not even the therapist that's doing the healing. They're just facilitating the healing.
Yes.
But with the parental transference, it's easy. I have found it easy enough to deal with that, because I suppose I just sort of very carefully kind of say to them, if they say something to me that's like that I see or receive as a transference, like as if I'm their parent, I might say, gosh, that feels a little bit like something you might say to your parent. Is there a parallel, do you think, between the way you operate with me and the way you're operating with your parent? And it makes them just stop and think. And I don't say it in a challenging way, because I think that, shame is always close to the surface in therapy. And it's very easy to shame the client. And you just could do it so easily without even thinking about it or
Yes.
realizing it.
Yes. And so, guys, for those of you who are out there, we're going to give you a little bit of a queuing system for when it is that these things pop up. So, if your client says to you, "You remind me just like you remind me of my dad," that would be a cue to probably, yeah, deal with it. Or somebody says to you, "Can I have a hug?" You're a talk therapist, and the person says, "Can I have a hug? Can you just hug me? Can you just hold me?" I know it's going to make you feel really crappy to say no, right? But you might want to consider these things as becoming a little bit more involved when it is that you do that, because once you do that, it might set a precedent in the client's mind.
Mm, mm, yes.
Yes, and that's
Yeah.
that's that's a precedent that you don't want to set. And once again, I cannot reiterate enough. Silence and letting a bunch of comments go is the same in that client's mind as acquiescence. Okay?
Mm,
That is the same thing. So you gotta
mm,
deal with it. You gotta deal with it, guys. Apart from that, we've dealt with the transference. Let's deal with another client therapist dynamic that is quite troublesome. The um how do I say, the model therapist. And I say the model therapist in this way. Have you ever heard people on the street says, "Yes, I go to so and that person is absolutely amazing." And the
Mhm.
therapist becomes a commodity. Guys, you're not there to become a commodity. Okay, like you want to be a superstar, get on to, like, I don't know, Oprah or whatever else. But when you hear clients treating you like, yes, I go to Nikki, or I go to Mary. Yes, she's excellent. She like, and they're using your name like it's a commodity. Okay, and they forget the purpose of why they're there. And so you have a bunch of people coming to you because you are the model therapist, right? Now, this may not happen to y'all specifically, but I want to know what your feelings about that, because I'm sure you've heard people talk like that, correct?
Yeah,
They
absolutely.
they name drop per se.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah,
Yes. And
yeah.
this happens to a lot of therapists in Beverly Hills, as an example. So
Hmm.
you're a Beverly Hills therapist, you're not making money. Your rate is very, very sky high, and you become a celebrity. People are going to you not because of your skill set, they're going to you because somebody said that you're a celebrity. And that is a trap for the therapist's ego. That is therapist's ego. Because I've said on numerous shows, the three arrogances is: I can save you, I can teach you, and I can heal you.
Right.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so I think that that is becoming a bigger problem as we roll on. Okay, because therapy is not the same as it used to be 20 years ago. Mary, you know the differences. You want to talk about that?
Yes, actually, it is quite different now. People who are coming into therapy are really well informed, about therapy and about their own lives. When I started in therapy, it really was something that people would never talk about. They'd never say they were going to therapy. It wasn't something that was the done thing. If you went to therapy, oh my God, you really were in a bad way. Whereas now I see the younger generation, and it's great that they will go to therapy at the drop of a hat, and they'll come in and they'll discuss something, and they never wait too long, but they always they're visitors to therapy, I suppose, rather than consumers that stay a while. And I do see a big change in the way that but I like it. I do like that. And I like the short therapy as well. I always find that that's lighter work than the deeper, longer
Hmm.
therapy.
Yet, honestly, there's I suppose the next problem that we're going to deal with is the projecting client.
Mm.
Now, we've dealt with the client that will come into your office and make you their daddy, girlfriend, boyfriend, mother, or whatever else. What about the client that will come into your office and make you the enemy, the Satan, right? Inside your office. Like, you know the type. You know the type. All right. If you've been in therapy for any length of time, that client, you will meet that client. It's not a matter if, it's a matter of when. And this is a natural human phenomenon. They have aggression and they have rage, and they need an outlet. And yeah, you're there. How do you deal with it? Let's hear it.
Yeah, I've had that situation where there's been difficult difficult clients, and I'd had to. Um, I felt like I wasted the whole session just convincing of them of how of certification, or how I can help them, or just to calm them down enough to know that I'm not the enemy. I'm here to assist you. I'm not here to fight with you. This is not an argument. So it can get tricky because sometimes they just come in so mad. They have all that anger in them. So yeah.
Yeah, just one came to mind, David, as you were describing that,
Mm,
and I had this guy for good few sessions actually, and initially it began off, like them all, really well, and everything was grand, and we were, I was listening and he was talking, but I got a feeling as the therapy was going on that I just wasn't getting through at all. There was nothing happening. And I brought this to his attention, and it was a reflection of other areas in his life. But eventually I began to feel to myself, oh, I think I'm going to refer this guy on to somebody else because I actually think that he could do better with somebody else. So we did discuss that, and we did discuss the projections, and then he did go, but it was a peaceful ending, but not one that I would have enjoyed. You can, as a therapist, you don't enjoy that kind of work because you're constantly working against the opposition. There's a brick wall in front of you, and you just can't get through it. And that's okay for a while, but it just becomes like impossible, to be honest, after a while.
Mm, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
The thing about it is when clients come into your office and they have this aggression, what the way I normally deal with it is that I maintain neutrality, and if I'm not maintaining neutrality, I'm like happy or whatever else. You don't return aggression for aggression, and then you say to them, "Well,
Mm.
this could go one of two ways. You could remain angry, but I bring it to their attention that they are angry. Okay, I do.
Mm.
I said
Mm.
this could go one of two ways because if you refer to someone else, you never know how that might end. How long do you want to stay with your problem? Is your problem, is your anger more important than the situation that you're facing? Very simple thing. Is it more important? Do you want resolution or do you just want your anger? You got to choose one. You got to choose one. Because if you want your anger, then you don't need me. I'll refer you. Okay? But if you want the resolution, then we can work together. Yay.
Mm.
And come to resolution
Mm.
together.
Mm.
Not in a happy way, but together. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So and so that usually tends to disconnect because they're not expecting that. Angry people are not expecting you to acknowledge their anger in such a
Mm.
way that it doesn't break down communication, right? So you say you
Mm.
got to choose one. You got to choose either you're angry or you want a resolution, right? Because on the situation of wanting a resolution, it's not going to stop their anger, first of all, but they can. It causes a brain seizure in their heads, like, hmm, I really hate you because you have a point, but
You
I
just
don't want to.
validated their anger. Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
I really
Yeah,
hate you
yeah.
because you have a point, but
Mm.
I don't, I don't want to live like this anymore, and
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
don't want to live like this has to override. Which brings us to the next issue with the client and therapist. The client and therapist do a bit of a dance, so to speak. Okay? And the dance looks something like this. I have a problem, help me. I am here to help. You have my confidence, you have my attention, and you have my knowledge, such as it is as a therapist, to the best of my ability. Client then says what their problem is and shares it with the therapist. The therapist is, this is a dance that we're doing here, right? The therapist then applies their knowledge and their common sense, which is where I was going exactly. When does common sense countermand what you know? There's a whole bunch of stuff that you will learn in therapy, whether you're a massage therapist, whether you're a psychotherapist, whether you're any kind of healer or therapist. There's a bunch of stuff that you learned in school. And then there is your common sense. Sometimes you might want to apply your common sense to therapy as opposed to the strict
Mm.
form of what you have learned in school. I learned that the hard way. All right? Because you want to try to, you're doing things by the book. Okay, let's say you're a Freudian psychotherapist and Freud had a bunch of techniques and he's approaching people from a, let's not get deep into the theories of Freud, like, let's say. But you have the atypical, how does one say it in a nice way? Oedipus complex in your office. Okay?
Yeah.
Does everybody know what the Oedipus complex is? All right, so Oedipus was this Greek guy. Um, It's a fable, actually. Um, so Oedipus was this guy who was fated to kill his father and marry his mother. Yeah, so the king, when he heard this proclamation, there was this it's Greek mythology. So there's this guy called Tiresias who keeps giving people bad news, right? So he goes to the king and says, "Oh, by the way, that baby that you just had, yeah, he's gonna kill you and marry your wife." So the king had a very simple solution. Yeah, I'm just going to kill the baby. Yeah, not a problem. See? Right? So he sends this guy to kill the baby. The guy can't kill the baby. He puts the baby in the river. He floats down to the next kingdom. Baby grows up, comes hunting one day, and the king is with his uh, horsemen, right? And they're hunting. Rolls up on this kid. The kid kills the king, and in that kingdom, whatever, whenever you kill somebody, you inherit the things that they have and their responsibilities. So Oedipus became king. He married his mother, had a couple of kids. Yeah, right. A couple of kids. And one day the prophet came back. His name is Tiresias, and says, "Oh, by the way, I mean, he invited this guy to lunch and so on." And the prophet looks at him and says to him, "Oh, after eating, like everybody's eating and stuff." And he says to him, "Oh, by the way, that's your mother you just married. And yeah, the guy you killed, yeah, that was your father." So, of course, Oedipus takes it badly. That would be an understatement, just so that we're clear. He takes it badly. He cuts off his eyelids and he goes walking in the desert. Okay? That's the Oedipus. In today's world, Freud co opted that Greek myth into what we now know as the Oedipus complex, where people have an unreasonable attachment to their mother or their mother figures. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so let's say you have the atypical Oedipus complex type dude walk into your office. Your common sense should tell you might not want to tell him the story I just told you guys. Yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, like your common sense should tell you that. So you need to know when to break from the narrow walls of what your practice is and start working on your intuitive knowledge and conditioning, right? Never give up your guts in therapy,
Yeah.
right? Your gut instinct. I don't know what you guys feel about that because honestly, I've never actually explained the Oedipus complex to a client, and I've had lots of clients. It's growing actually. There's a whole bunch. What we This is what you would call a mama's boy. For those of you who don't know, there's a whole bunch of people that are walking around out there with the Oedipus complex to some degree or another. And I don't even believe in a lot of what Freud put out there because trust me, it's very uncomfortable stuff.
Mhm. Mhm.
Very uncomfortable stuff. Right?
Mhm.
So I don't know how you guys feel about the gut instinct and therapy. Tell me, have you had to break from what you do to utilize your common sense in different ways? And I want to hear
Ye-
about it.
Yeah, I would have found, David, when I started off that, I was all full of the theory and all full of the structure and all of that. And I was paying a lot of attention to that at the very start when I qualified first. But I found gradually over the years and over having more and more experience of working with people, it was my intuition actually that was the stronger of all of the of stuff I've learned. And that's what I would work with. And the more you work with people, actually, the more fine tuned you get to people's energy. And again, this is just something that happens. You don't have to try to do that. It's something that gets developed in you just through the space of time. So I would rely on that a lot, and I know that I can too. I trust it.
Yeah.
And
Tell me,
the
Nikki.
fundamentals, of course, are important, but just being able to recognize the senses and your gut feeling when you're in a situation and how to navigate it has saved me multiple times.
Mm,
The
yeah.
fundamentals were there, and I understand the processes and what I had,
Mm,
what the assignment was. But you really have to be able to tap and know what is yours and what's not yours. If your client's
yes,
projecting on you, or yeah, and most of the time they don't know that they're doing it. They just don't know.
exactly.
So you, as the clinician, have to hold that space. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. When it is that you see, I've been a massage therapist as well. Yes, I've been a massage therapist as well. And one of the things that you learn when you're dealing with people's bodies and so on is that you may think that you're going by textbook structure. You know that you're gonna treat the trapezius in one way, you're gonna treat the brainstem in another way, and so on. But you intuitively, especially when you're in contact with an individual, know exactly where the problem is. Okay, and you have to go with your gut. And it's when you don't go with your gut, you have less positive outcomes for the client, which is the last thing that we're going to deal with today, right? A lot of people run their clinics or their practices from the point of um, business. And there's a point when it is that your business becomes contraindicated towards client outcomes. That is a danger, eh? Right? Because in wellness, the main output would be client outcomes. But let's say you are new as a therapist and you don't want to charge as much because you're not confident, okay, about that. And so you try to get any clients, it doesn't matter who they are. And that might be a good thing because you're going to cut your teeth on some very hard cases, okay? There's a point in time, and when you're a big time celebrity therapist and stuff like that, there comes a point in time where business your business model, what you get from the income that you get from your business becomes contraindicated towards client outcomes, right? And that is something that is a trap for a lot of therapists, okay? Because you may be very, very skilled, you may be very good at what you do, but then what happens is that more and more people want your services, and so you raise the rates to get more from your business. And this follow me here. You raise the rates to get more from your business, and you're not thinking laterally, right? And then the clients that you get are clients that are more demanding because you've raised your rates, and you're doing patchwork with your clients. You know what patchwork is?
Mm,
Come into my office, I'll make you feel better after an hour, and then make you feel better after the other hour, and so on. And money's rolling in, and then you have lost integrity in that
mm.
scenario.
Yeah.
You
And then
guys
the
understand
client
me?
is, yeah, then the client's just patched together, and that exacerbates their issues even further down the line. So then they have to
Mm.
come back. So it can get
Mm.
really tricky. Hmm. Hmm.
And it's
Yes,
not good for yourself either. It's not good for your
Right.
own integrity. Just as a
yes,
therapist, you just won't feel good if you work like that. It's
Right.
not taking care of yourself, to be honest.
No,
yes,
and then your energy is all scattered, and you don't have
Yes.
a balanced
Yes.
schedule, and it's not good for anybody. Yeah. Hmm.
No.
Hmm.
yes. Becoming the mercenary therapist, right?
Mm.
Hmm.
There are a lot of people who become the mercenary therapist, and it actually impacts on everyone else in the industry. Okay,
Mm.
so I don't
Mm.
know. I don't know what we can say to avoid therapists, psychotherapists, spiritual counselors from falling into the trap of becoming the mercenary therapist. But what I can say is that when your practice is in contradiction to client outcomes, please remember, sit down, close your eyes, and remember why you got into what you are doing.
Mm.
Why
That's
did you
it.
do it? Why are you on this path? And I'm
Yeah.
calling out to all the therapists in the community out there. Why did you start this? Right? Because if you started it to be popular or just to have money, then that's easy, right? That's
Mm.
easy. That is a lot easier than getting positive client outcomes. Absolutely, it is. Okay,
Mm.
because it's all about the hype. Apart from that, I just wanted to let you guys. Are there any other tips that you have for new therapists or upcoming therapists? and counselors and psychotherapists, as in the case, that you can share with them to help them become, well, I don't know, better therapists, or to just help them with their clients? Nikki, I'm going to go to you. Go ahead.
I would think organization would be the first thing. Really get yourself organized, get yourself trained, get yourself certified, and then and then schedule properly. I think that is really key. And also, there are so many resources out. If you need help, reach out to your fellow therapists. If you get stuck on a situation, reach out to your community, because there are going to be situations that you haven't experienced prior,
Hmm.
and that will really throw you for a loop. So
Mm,
reach out and
mm,
make sure that your community is you're connecting with your community, because that's going to make you a better therapist in
mm.
the long run. Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that, Nikki. And I remember when I started out, I found it really important to have good supervision, to have a good to join a supervisory group of therapists where you could share your fears, because at the beginning it is quite daunting to go in and sit in front of somebody, even though you're qualified. It is actually quite daunting. So it's good to have that kind of support. That a good supervision, I think, is very good. And also, I think, to keep in mind too what it is that brought you into therapy in the first place. Was it because you saw that it was a lucrative job, or was it that you wanted to work at a deeper level with people? I always see therapy as working with the soul. I see it as a sacred space where we work with the soul. And if it's good for them, their soul, and good for mine, well, then it has to be doing something. So I think that has always been, and I have shared that actually with some clients. I do think that there's a huge spiritual aspect to therapy.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Yeah, that's true. So, guys, we promise you guys a download. Nikki, what's inside that download? That's let me tell
Okay.
these people
Yeah.
who.
So, yeah, we have a work. It's going to include a workbook on nurturing your spirituality.
Mhm,
We have money chakra secrets,
mhm.
healing fundamentals, um, hold harmless agreements. So if you're working with clients, that's really going to be important. And I think there's 50 or so quotes on this QR code that'll help you with your social media marketing and so
I
forth.
think we added about 150 actually. We
150, is that? Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I misspoke.
So we no, no, that's fine. We we are we are giving these handouts and stuff to you guys. The workbook is going to allow you to work with your client. So in case you're wondering how to get a hold of it, we're going to put the QR code up. So for those of you with smartphones, get your smartphone ready. Nikki, why are you looking for your phone? You're on the
No,
broadcast.
no, no. I have my smartwatch. I'm good. I have it
Right.
right here.
Right. So get your smartphones ready. I'm going to put it up on the screen shortly. What's most important inside that is a hold harmless agreement for those of you who are cross trained and so on, which is agreement that you have with your client when you're running certain kinds of therapies and so on. So it's an agreement between your client and you. You guys ready? Okay. Excellent. I will be bringing that down in 10 seconds. And so, for those of you who complained last week that I only put the link expired after 24 hours, well, you guys should have been faster. I increased the time limit for the link. You have 48 hours to download that uh, package that we have for you guys. If you guys are needing any further information on the packet, you can find me at info@universalcitizentv.com. So now, before we go, we wanted to let you know, for those of you who are in need of assistance of any kind, Mary Kilcoyne and Nikki, they do Zoom appointments. They do appointments, so it doesn't matter where you are. You can reach out. Do not languish in and suffer in silence. reach out to any one of these individuals. Nikki's website is on the screen right now. That's solutionsforyourself.com, and Mary's email is marykilcoin@hotmail.com. Guys, if you guys have any further information and so on that you'd like to share, these guys are excellent therapists, which is why they're on the show, because I know them. All right, and I know that they're dedicated to their work. So if you guys need assistance in terms of therapy assistance and so on, reach out to these ladies, please. All right, Mary, do you have anything further that you'd like to say to our audience, whether from the client side or the therapist side?
Not really. I just enjoyed being on the show and talking about therapy. It's a subject that's close to my heart. I think I was always a therapist even before I trained. I think I was always listening and solving things, and so I would be happy to meet anybody who wants to have a session with me at any time. So please contact me on my email, which is marykilcoin@hotmail.com. Thank you.
All right, Nikki, do you have anything else to say with regard to this topic?
Yes, quickly. Thank you, Mary, for coming on with us today. And thank you, David. I can be found on all UCM Network social media platforms. And my website is solutionsforyourself.com. And I have various services that I offer. So please take a look at the website and you can schedule directly with me. I've cleared my waiting list. So I do have blocks of time in July and August. So please reach out if you're struggling because we're here to help.
And if you guys need a referral, no, well, not a referral. If you guys need a testimonial, Nikki is my therapist, and so now is Mary Kilcoin, right? All right, guys. I will see you next week where we address another important topic. Thank you guys for coming out, and remember, 48 hours. 48 hours. Right, to download that package, and it's yours to use in your practice or whatever else. Right, Mary, I'm going to be sending you that link directly so you can have whatever's in there. Okay.
Thank
All right,
you. Thank
guys,
you.
take care.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Bye bye.